The sound that ripped through the humid jungle air was one of pure, primal despair, freezing park ranger Jack in his tracks. It wasn't the defiant roar of a territorial male, but a deep, guttural cry of a being facing its end. Through the powerful lenses of his binoculars, the scene materialized into a nightmare. Jabari, the magnificent silverback gorilla he had observed for months, the undisputed king of this territory, was trapped. Sunk to his powerfully muscled chest, in a viscous pit of mud, he was being swallowed by the earth itself. Every desperate heave of his mighty shoulders only served to pull him deeper into the suffocating embrace of the quicksand. On the safe, solid bank, his tiny infant, Leah, shrieked in terror, her small cries a heartbreaking echo of her father's agony. But to understand how this titan of the jungle came to be so utterly helpless, we must go back just a few hours. The morning had dawned with a deceptive tranquility, the sun's rays piercing the dense canopy in golden shafts, illuminating a scene of domestic peace. Jack had watched from his hidden observation post as Jabari, a creature of immense power, displayed a surprising tenderness. He meticulously groomed Leah, his massive, leathery fingers gentle as they combed through her fur. The infant tumbled playfully in his enormous arms, a picture of absolute safety and trust. For Jack, this wasn't just wildlife observation. It was a sacred glimpse into the heart of a family, the silent, noble guardians of a world that was rapidly vanishing under human encroachment. The turning point came with the sudden, violent fury of a flash flood. A storm high in the Virunga Mountains had sent a torrent of water surging down the dry riverbeds, reshaping the landscape in minutes. What was once a familiar, sandy path for the guerrilla troop had been transformed into a treacherous, hidden trap of liquefied soil. Jabari, leading his family to a new foraging ground, had taken a single, fateful step onto what appeared to be solid ground. The surface gave way instantly, the ground beneath him turning from solid to liquid, a silent, unforgiving predator created by the very earth he ruled. The patriarch's weight became his enemy, sealing his fate with terrifying speed. Now, back in the horrifying present, every ounce of Jabari's legendary strength was useless. The quicksand held him in a cold, relentless grip, pulling him down with a calm, inexorable force. The initial shock and panic in his intelligent amber eyes were slowly being replaced by a devastating look of resignation. His powerful struggles lessened as exhaustion took over, his gaze shifting from his own impossible plight to the small, trembling figure of his daughter on the shore. He was a king watching his legacy face a world without him. The air was thick with the silent, agonizing question that hung between the trapped father, the terrified infant, and the powerless human. What happened next would challenge the very boundary between instinct and intervention. Their unique connection began 3 months prior, on a day thick with mist and uncertainty. Jack, new to this patrol route, had first seen Jabari not as a research subject, but as a force of nature. The silverback had emerged from the bamboo forest, a living mountain of muscle and silver fur, and simply stood there, watching him. There was no chest beating, no aggressive charge. Inside Jabari's mind, the initial instinct to defend was tempered by curiosity. This human was different. He was quiet, solitary, and his scent carried no trace of the aggression he associated with poachers. Jack, in turn, felt an overwhelming sense of awe, not fear. He lowered his gaze in a submissive gesture, a silent acknowledgement of the gorilla's sovereignty. That single, quiet moment was the foundation of their unspoken pact. The trust was cemented a few weeks later. A venomous gaboon viper, perfectly camouflaged, lay coiled on the path near where the young gorillas were playing. Jack spotted it from his vantage point, his heart seizing with dread. He couldn't shout or interfere directly. Instead, he took a heavy stone and threw it far to the right of the troop, creating a loud, startling crack. The gorillas scattered, moving away from the sound and, unknowingly, from the snake. Jabari's sharp eyes missed nothing. He saw the viper slither away, and then looked directly at Jack's hiding spot for a long, contemplative moment. He understood. The human's action was not an attack, but a warning. From that day on, Jack's presence was no longer just tolerated. It was accepted. Their communication evolved into a silent language of proximity and sound. Jack learned the deep, rumbling hum Jabari made when his family was content, and the sharp, huffing cough that signaled unease. One afternoon, Jack unknowingly strayed too close to where Leah was nursing. Jabari didn't move to attack, but emitted a low, guttural warning that vibrated through the very ground. Jack immediately and slowly backed away, showing his palms. He felt the silverback's immense relief and saw the tension leave his powerful shoulders. Jabari responded with a soft, almost imperceptible grunt. It was a clear conversation without a single word. A boundary had been set, respected, and acknowledged. It was a dialogue of pure, mutual understanding between two vastly different beings. This bond deepened into a quiet companionship, a familiar rhythm in the jungle's daily life. Jack would watch from a respectful distance as Jabari taught his young ones how to find the most succulent shoots, his immense power always tempered with a gentle patience. He felt he was witnessing the very soul of fatherhood. For Jabari, the man with the quiet eyes became a predictable, non-threatening part of his world, a silent sentinel on the edge of his territory. The gorilla felt a strange sense of calm knowing the human was there, a silent guardian against other, more dangerous men. It was this profound established trust that now hung in the balance, a fragile thread stretched taut over a pit of despair. And what was about to happen would test that thread to its absolute breaking point. The scene Jack witnessed now was a horrifying evolution of the initial crisis. Jabari's powerful struggles had ceased, replaced by a grim conservation of energy that was clearly failing. The thick, viscous mud, once at his chest, had now crept up to his massive shoulders, constricting his every breath. Each shallow gasp was accompanied by a sickening, gurgling sound as the earth tightened its grip. The fiery defiance in the silverback's amber eyes had been extinguished, leaving behind a profound exhaustion and a heartbreaking fear. He felt the immense crushing pressure on his lungs, a slow-motion suffocation. His kingdom had become his tomb, and the cold, wet weight was not just mud, but the unbearable heaviness of his own impending end, a final betrayal by the land he had ruled his entire life. From his hidden vantage point, Jack's professional detachment had completely shattered, leaving only a raw, agonizing helplessness. His training, the strict protocols of non-intervention, screamed in his mind, but they were hollow words against the reality of the slow death he was watching. His radio remained useless, the mocking static, a symbol of his complete isolation from any possible help. He felt like a ghost, an impotent observer to a sacred tragedy. Every rule he had ever lived by now felt like a cruel, bureaucratic cage, preventing a basic act of compassion. He wasn't just watching an animal die. He was watching a father's strength fade, a king being consumed by an indifferent, geological monster, and the weight of his inaction was becoming as suffocating as the mud itself. The rest of Jabari's family huddled on the solid ground of the bank, a tableau of silent, confused grief. Their normal, vibrant social noises had vanished, replaced by low, anxious grunts that barely disturbed the heavy air. The other females stood frozen, their dark eyes wide with a fear they couldn't comprehend, unable to process why their invincible leader could not simply walk away from this trap. On the edge of the group, Leah had stopped her frantic shrieks. Now she emitted tiny, choked sobs, her small form trembling uncontrollably. Her gaze was fixed on her father, a heartbreakingly direct line of despair. Their collective powerlessness radiated outwards, a circle of fear that offered no solutions, only amplifying the profound isolation of their dying patriarch. The quicksand itself was the most terrifying part of the ordeal. It was an antagonist without malice, a silent, patient predator born of rain and earth. Its surface was deceptively placid, betraying its lethal nature only in the inexorable, downward pull it exerted on the massive gorilla. With every passing minute, its grip became more absolute, a force of nature that could not be fought, intimidated, or reasoned with. It wasn't evil, it simply existed, and its impassive, unfeeling consumption of the magnificent creature was the purest form of horror. Jack watched the mudline creep ever higher, a relentless, geological tide marking the final moments of Jabari's reign. The jungle itself seemed to have fallen silent, holding its breath in the face of such an elemental and indifferent execution. Inside Jabari's mind, the desperate fight for survival was giving way to a flood of fading sensations. The raw, physical struggle was over. Now, only the cold remained, a deep, numbing chill that seeped into his very bones, heralding the end. Fragments of his life flickered through his consciousness. The feeling of the warm sun on his silver back after a cool rain, the sharp, sweet taste of a fresh bamboo shoot, the comforting weight and scent of Leah nestled securely against his chest for a nap. These memories were becoming distant, like echoes from another life. A profound, soul-deep sadness washed over him. A grief not for his own life, but for the future he was being stolen from. For the family he could no longer protect. The sun began its descent, its light turning from gold to a deep, ominous